Well, Comrade Festus Osifo joins us on the show this morning. He's the president of a trade union congress. Good morning, comrade, not Congress. Welcome to the morning brief. I'm trying to get into the conversation quickly because this is a matter of national urgency and importance. But I know you've been attending the ILO conference in Geneva. Perhaps we can talk about that much later, how our situation in Nigeria ties with the global situation. But speak to what the president said to enshrine what has been agreed upon. I know the NLC says there's been no agreement. Two-edged question, Mr. Osifo. First, were you disappointed that the president did not make a minimum wage pronouncement in that Democracy Day speech? And how did you, that's the TUC, received that agreed upon statement?
Yeah, good morning, Kayode, Bukola, and Jeffrey. Good morning, Nigerians. Yes, so when we heard what the president said about the minimum wage, that what has been agreed is going to be forwarded to the National Assembly. So, again, words are meaning of words are actually the way you see them or the way you could interpret them. So, because for us, the last meeting we had on this minimum wage was held last week, Friday. So, on that meeting, we agreed on that meeting that two numbers are going to be forwarded to Mr. President. That is the 62,000 naira as well as the 250,000 naira. So that was what the tripartite committee meeting agreed upon. So probably that has got to the table of Mr. President. So what the president will now forward now depends on a lot of factors, the consultation and all that he will now do. So for us in Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, our understanding of that is, first, there is no common figure that was agreed upon. There is no common figure. Then secondly, you have two figures that the committee agreed to be forwarded to Mr. President. And a report on that was written, and we signed off that report. So all parties, organized private sector, the government, and the organized labor signed off that document. That document was sort of an agreement, but that agreement is not on a particular figure, but on two sets of figures that will be forwarded to Mr. President. So again, it's a matter of semantics. If the president is saying that we've agreed on one figure, the answer is a no. But if the sets of figures that we agreed on, probably the president will now look at it and make further consultations and now forward the figure to National Assembly. So he is at best, or his handlers are best to explain what that means. But clearly what happened at the committee level was that we agreed to send two figures to Mr. President, and I think that was done.
All right, Mr. Osifo, in mathematics, there's something we call being bounded upward and downward. Yours is in the higher cadre, and the federal government is somewhere around 62,000. It's difficult not to believe that the federal government may not go on that is bounded downward. So my question would be, scenario planning for labor, given that the president has said something has reached him, whether you agree with him or not, that he will send it to the National Assembly, and he goes with a lower number. What will labor do?
I know. In labor, yes, we do scenario planning. You are very correct. I mean, we do those things behind the scene, but we don't also want to second guess. And we don't also want to preempt what the president is going to do. As we speak today, yes, a lot of us are out in ILO, the International Labour Conference, but we have a chunk of our membership back home. So we are doing all the reach out as well. We are also trying, we are not sleeping beyond the work that the tripartite committee has done. We are also trying to justify and make the case why the president should tilt towards the upper band. So that we are currently doing at the moment. Let's assume, for example, if, for example, the president decides to say, okay, I'm sending 200,000 naira to the National Assembly. The organized labor will also take it before the National Assembly and also push them to do much more. So our work will not end until until the Minimum Wage Act 2024 is passed into law. So we will continuously push, we will continuously advocate for what we think is right. Yeah, but for what labor will do, I think it's a bit premature for us to go into that now. But all we are doing now is to mount advocacy, to mount pressure, and to let them understand the need to tilt towards the upper band. Because of the challenges that an average Nigerian worker is facing today. So that is exactly what we have been doing since last week Friday.
You know, Mr. Sifo, Jeffrey's question is instructive, such that it will help us understand how long this process will go on for and the implications that are contained therein, whether if government proposes something below 62 or just a piecemeal addition, as has been characteristic so far, whether we're still going to be dealing with another nationwide strike. But as we move forward in the conversation, the challenge that has been explained about why the subnationals cannot afford it is because of the consequential adjustment, for all other cadres of workers. And as a result, there's a proposition by the Senior Advocate of Nigeria that shouldn't be a problem, that general salary increases can be done at different times apart from the periods of negotiation of minimum wage. And I'm curious to know whether you agree with this proposition, such that the minimum wage would not elicit so much disagreement across board, particularly across the states of the Federation, and it can be a decent wage for the generality of workers on that cadre. Do you agree, Mr. Osifo?
Yes, thank you, Bukola. So the way minimum wage works, which I think most Nigerians are a bit conversant with today, is first of all, when you move the minimum, for example, let's assume today that the minimum is 250,000 naira. So if you move that minimum is going to be applied to somebody on grade level 1, step 1. So once you do that, the next person who is going to be grade level 1, step 2, or that will be grade level 2, step 1, you have to do that adjustment. So consequential adjustment is actually inevitable. Otherwise, if you move the one downward, okay, let's assume that you have somebody today that is earning 100,000 naira. So if the minimum, and that person is, let's say, a grade 7 officer earning 100,000 naira based on the old minimum wage of 30,000 naira. So if you now move the minimum wage to 250,000 naira, what are you going to do? You have to now readjust that step from grade level 1 to grade level 17. So that consequential adjustment is actually inevitable. You have to do it so that those at the lower run of the cadre will not earn much more than those at the upper end. That's one. Then secondly as well, to the other question about the subnationals, talking about affordability. It will interest you to note, Bukola, that we, from the part of labor, we've also tried to gather some data. You will see that some of the states that are not paying the current 30,000, I think there are about 5 of them, according to a subcommittee that the tripartite committee set up, led by the Minister of Finance. They worked with with MBS to come up with those states that are not currently paying minimum wage. So 5 states were identified. If you look at those 5 states, the fact that they are not paying 30,000 minimum wage, it does not necessarily mean that they don't have the means to pay. Because when we check those states and we check the economic activities in those states and we check their IGRO vis-a-vis their allocation from the federal account, and also with the number of workforce they have in such states, we realize that they are not worse off in any way. So it wasn't really the ability to pay. It was more or less the willingness to pay. So it's more about the will rather than the ability. And that is what we have contended with. Because we have had some states that a particular state governor will tell you that he cannot pay minimum wage. But immediately he hands over, you'll be surprised that the successor in office will even increase what the minimum wage would be. So we've had such cases, abound. So for us, it is about the willingness and not the ability to pay.
Can you outline those states for us? Can you enumerate them, those 5 states?
Yes. Okay. From the survey that was done by MBS, championed by a subcommittee that was set up as led by the Minister of Finance. So the Minister of Finance read the report when they concluded their activities, and I think top on that state was Anambra State. Then the next on that state, from that state was Ebonyi State. The next was Kogi, and I think we also have Zamfara. But immediately that report came out, Zamfara agreed that immediately they will start paying minimum wage. But we still have Ebonyi, Kogi, and Anambra. Although Anambra since came out and said no, that they were paying minimum wage. That minimum wage is not just about salary. That is salary plus allowances. So that was the position of Professor Chukwuma Soludo, the governor of Anambra. But however, that report talked about these 5 states that are not paying minimum wage.
Right. So you talked about consequential adjustment, which is where the rubber meets the road yet again. For a lot of people, they just thought, okay, do this for the lowest earners, the minimum wage earners. But if this will be, if you cascade this across board, then I need to also understand what the thinking is for the private sector. The private sector, they say they employ way more than government, obviously. In fact, it's been said that global statistics says about maybe 8 in 10 of employees are employed by the private sector. Now, if we say you are doing this for civil servants, I'm not sure what the population of civil servants in Nigeria is, according to latest figure. Well, last time I checked, 720,000 for federal. Let's say in Lagos, the last figure I saw was plus 100,000. So plus or minus 5 million civil servants for federal and states. So that leaves way more for the private sector. So what is it thinking? Are you looking at maybe consequential adjustment too for private sector? How will they be able to pay? Because a lot of people watching right now are not being employed by government, they're private. So what should they expect, Mr. Osifo?
Thank you so much, Kayode. In all my career, I've worked in private sector from when I left university till date. So I've worked in private sector. So if you also need to deconstruct what private sector is. So there are private sectors that are well organized. There are private sectors that have union. When we discuss minimum wage today, for example, how would that apply to those working in oil and gas? How would that apply to those working in food and beverages? How would that apply to those working in construction? Because in the private sector, they have what we call collective bargaining agreement, in most of them, except maybe the nano sectors. But for most of the small, medium, and big enterprise, they have
All right.
Well, we'll reconnect with Comrade Osifo subsequently, but quite an important point he's making, guys, because I think that's where the question has been, but he's trying to make a distinction between different angles of private sector. It's also important to get a sense of what is happening right now, because we understand that the 1 week relaxation of that strike elapsed on Tuesday. So what are we in a grace period? What exactly is happening during this time? Are they aware if the president has been able to transmit that bill to the National Assembly? Does it contain the 2 figures, or there is now a figure that the president has decided upon? So we hope to get some of these answers from Mr. Osifo when we reconnect with him. It's a big conversation, guys, this minimum wage.
I know that the labor union had released a statement. Joe Ajero had released a statement while he was at I think they're still in Geneva for the ILO. It said that there's not going to be strike, at least for now, pending what the nod the president will give to the proposals before him. So nobody's going to take any action. So as he said, they are just around making sure that they put their house in order and continue to persuade, as Mr. Sifa said. What they're trying to do as well is to see whatever the president sends, they will persuade the National Assembly maybe to do better. We don't know what the president is going to send, which is what the disagreement was actually all about, that the president sent a proposal and said they have reached an agreement. I think they were not comfortable with that word reach, because they said there are 2 agreements in front of you. So where did we reach where, and what was the agreement? So, but the president has a right and exclusive preserve in consultation with everybody on board to decide on what it should be based on reality of the parts of the country as well as economic realities as well. But remember as well that, guys, that the government is already in arrears by a month.
Exactly.
The government is already in arrears by a month, because I know that May 1st they said that they're going to start paying from May. Yeah. And it's sad to see that there are some states that can't even pay 30. That's why the governors were screaming that the 60,000 you're talking about, we're not even in for it. But somebody has argued that if you look at, and the only way to track this, so I understand we have Mr. Osifo back. Mr. Osifo, maybe you land on your thoughts.
Yes. So like as I have said, so in most private organizations, you have trade unions. For example, in oil and gas, for example, you have Pengasan. who is an affiliate of TUC. You have Nupeng, that is an affiliate of NLC. You have in construction, you have in food and beverage, you have in electricity, just like that. So in every now and then, so there are collective bargaining agreements that are being debated. And when you debate those collective bargaining agreements, what you normally do is that you look at the economic situations and you look at how to adjust majorly for inflation. So most of the private sectors, I can tell you that they have actually left where we are today. Those are maybe the small, the medium, and the large enterprises. But for the nano, that is where some of the challenges are. And they've also made their case within that tripartite committee as well, that they will not also be able to afford the 250,000 naira. So those were some of the conversations we've had. But for the other private sectors, there is CBA negotiations in some cases on a yearly basis, in some other cases on a 2-yearly basis. The reason for CBA negotiation is actually to ensure that the value of what you earn today, the value of what you pay to your employees today, that over the period, that value is reinstated so that the inflation will not continuously erode what the value of your earnings are. So, but that is basically on what happened in the private sector.
All right, Mr. Sifo, the president has said that they will pay what they can afford, and they're already in arrears. So my question will be, is Labour willing to come down beyond 250,000 if push comes to shove?
What we have always said, I was in your show about a month ago or thereabout, and then we were saying 490-something thousand. What we said was that for us, when we give figures, there is always a room to meander. There's always a room for us to do some adjustment here and there. So there is no figure that is sacrosanct. There is no figure that is cast in stone that both parties will be fixated on it. One of the reasons we went on an industrial action the last time was because when they got to 60,000, they told us that the cover cannot even join the 60,000, that they cannot even add 1 naira to it. So that was one of the reasons that led to that industrial action, beyond the fact that there were also delays. Because if not for that action, I'm not sure that the National Assembly that said what they said yesterday, that they are ready and prepared to pass the minimum wage immediately after Salah, because we saw some conspiracy of delays here and there. But now there is a national call to duty and a national awakening on why the new minimum wage must be put in place. So we are not fixated 100%. But beyond the minimum wage conversation, some other conversations that we have also had in the tripartite committee, for us in Labour, we do everything possible to ensure that even the private sectors, even the manufacturing companies that are exiting the country today, what is government doing to ensure that they stay? You just heard that Guinness has said that they are exiting. We heard that Kimberly Clark also said that they are exiting. What we told them was that some of these decisions to exit, they don't take them today. We have had the inkling over a year ago that Guinness was planning to exit Nigeria. What we told them was that what has the Minister of Trade and Investment been doing over this period? You go to them, you sit with them, meet with their board. What are the issues? What are the challenges? Why do you want to exit? What can we do differently for you to stay? That is the function of government. And that is what we have also championed in the committee meetings that we have had. We have also told them that some of the policies is also driving away the investment. That government must do everything possible to support business. Because we understand that if business survives, that is when they will be able to cater for employees. We understand that very well. And we also advocate and we also push for that as well. Then again, we also look at the value of money. How can you stop this erosion in the value of Naira? And how can we show the value of Naira so that it is not about the volume? The reason we are fixated on volume today is because the value has actually eroded. But if the value was still okay, if 30,000 Naira could buy what it used to buy in 2019 today, we will not be pushing and crying to say you have to up the minimum wage. But it is because of the fact that the value has eroded. So all we are saying is that even if we agree today, 250,000 Naira,
all right, Mr. Sifo.
Proper policies, both monetary and
those points have been advocated in the past time and again. Very quickly, Nigerians also seek to know what the position of Labour is as far as the increase in electricity tariff is concerned. It was one of the conditions that you gave government during the nationwide strike that you called some weeks back. But it seems as if Labour has now toned down on that insistence on the decrease in electricity tariff. Perhaps you would like to explain to us why that is, and if it is still on the table as one of your bargaining chips.
Yes, thank you, Bukola, for bringing that again to the front burner. Actually, we added that to our shopping list when we are pushing for the minimum wage issue. If you remember, a day before the strike, we had on June 2nd, there was a meeting with the leadership of the National Assembly, led by the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Reps, and their entire principal officers. They were in that conversation. So during that meeting, the Senate President gave us some level of assurance that for them that they have asked the NEC to do a reversal, and that there's going to be there is some actions that they are taking to ensure that that happens. So when the Senate President told us that, we said, okay, we will not, we are here to watch what is actually going to happen. So we gave them some level of benefit of doubt to watch for a while and see the intervention of the Senate. So we are watching that intervention. When that intervention falls short, we will bring it up again to the national burner, because they told us clearly that they are in sync with us, that they are on the same page with us, and that they think that astronomical hike, that astronomical increment in the price of electricity for the so-called band A, that most of the companies that they operate within band A. So what you will now do is that when you increase that cost of electricity, you will indirectly transfer it to the consumer, who are most especially the downtrodden Nigerians. So with that intervention, we decide to suspend a bit on that and watch the actions of Senate. But we will tarry for a while. When we don't see the required results, we would also start championing it.
Well, Mr. Osifo, clearly this is not the end of the conversation. The part about laying off to ensure that wage increase will not lead to layoff. If you're aware, by the way, if the bill has been sent to the National Assembly, is that a yes or no? Has it been sent?
No, we are not aware that it has been sent.
It hasn't been sent just yet. But clearly the comment... Right.
I want to make a comment on the layoff.
Okay, we have to anchor now, Comrade Osifo. So here's what we'll do. We're going to continue this conversation, hopefully on Monday. So let's just pen you down already. Obviously, there will be more things to talk about them, but we really have to anchor right now. We just wanted to get an update. We understand that you're also busy, so let's allow you continue your day. We've been speaking
Thank you so much.
Festus Osifo. And, you referenced what happened to Diageo. Some have said it's just selling their stakes, changing business model. Tolerant coming in, but still, they still have that business here in Nigeria. But Comrade Festus Osifo, would like to thank you so much and wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, Kayode. Thank you, Bukola and Jeffrey.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, turn our attention to a very important part of the conversation. It concerns inclusion. So stay with us.